Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for Let's Chat. My name is Shayla Reeves, and today we're going to be talking about embracing the journey authenticity. This is our second chance to have this conversation with a new group of participants. So I'm so excited to launch into the conversation. We'll give everyone another minute and a half or so to join us, and I'll play a quick intro to give them a chance to log on, and we'll launch into the conversation from there.
I always like to create an environment where people feel comfortable to ask questions. You don't always know what you don't know. You may not have it all figured out today, and that's okay. Taking one step at a time, those glimmers become a consistent light. It all finally begins to click. Each and every moment that you experience is shaping the person you are in this life to be.
Sometimes our pain points go all the way back to childhood.
What if I allowed myself to imagine a life that was more spacious and expansive than the one I'm living?
What if I don't have to live the same way that everyone else is living?
When you are authentic, your energy changes and the people around you change. It's just like doors just start opening. You're like, well, wait, how did this happen? How did this happen? How did this happen? You're showing up completely different.
And often it does require healing and going in some uncomfortable spaces before we can truly flourish.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for Let's Chat. My name is Shayla Reeves, and I'm so excited to launch into this conversation about embracing the journey authenticity. We have such an amazing group of participants for this round of the conversation. So I want to go ahead and bring everyone up so you have a chance to meet them individually. First, we have Shelby M. Wagner. She's a personal development catalyst and podcast host for Catalyst for Conversations. And then we also have joining us MEGS Pulvermacher. Did I say it right?
You did. Nailed
it. LGBTQ plus community builder, podcaster, and school psychologist. Thanks for joining us. We have Dr. ZAKIA ROBBINS-MCNEAL. She is an accountability coach, author, and professor. And last but not least, we have CAREY joining us, plumbing apprentice and teacher. Thank you all so much for being a part of the conversation today. And if you can see there on the screen, I have the ticker going. I have all of their Instagram handles. So if you feel like something you hear tonight is resonating, please take a moment to give all of them a follow and, send some words of encouragement, because we're all looking to grow and build and get better. And what better way to do that than showing your support through social media? So I'll start with, let's see, Carly, let's start with you. I have been so excited to get to connect with you and learn about your story and your experience. So tell me a little bit about you. How did you end up on your present journey, and how did you get started?
That's a great question. So I taught for 11 years prior. I was a middle school English teacher and lacrosse coach. And after 10, 11 years of doing that, I just thought the world's a really, really big place. And I loved my time as a teacher, but I wanted to try something different. And in looking at where my next move was going to be, I realized that the trades is an area that not a lot of people are going into, especially not a lot of women. and I love using my hands and creative problem solving, and the trades felt like a really good next step. So I just finished about 1.5 years of being a plumbing apprentice in Minneapolis.
That is awesome. I can't wait to learn more about that and what the journey and the transformation has taught you. Megs, tell me a little bit about your journey as well.
Yeah, so I've been in education working as a school psychologist for 10 years now. And for the past 4 or 5, I would say I've kind of been I've been tapping more into my creative side and trying to find different ways to help folks and lift them up. And that's led me to kind of tapping into my superpower of connecting people and using my energy and fun personality to inspire folks through podcasting. And I also have an online community that's international. It's for queer identifying entrepreneurs, creatives, and change makers. And we just all get together with the goal of amplifying queer missions and or amplifying queer voices and empowering queer missions. And it's super fun. It's kind of the perfect marriage of all the things I really love to do, and also kind of the educational mental health background as well.
Awesome. And I look forward to learning more about your work this evening as well. And Shelby, you are involved in helping people on their journeys to really unlocking what their authenticity might be and kind of helping them navigate that process, right?
Correct. Yeah. And that came a little bit out of my own journey. So I had been in the corporate space for several years as a coach, an Agile coach and Clifton Strengths coach. And it was about, almost 2 years ago that I just really felt like I was being called to do something else where I could be more myself. And so almost 2 years ago, I started my own practice and business, going down that path of really being able to tackle the subjects that I'd like to help people expose and emerge their authenticity in their work life, and tackling some of those bigger things like identity and helping people peel back the layers. And so as I've gone on my own journey, I've found ways to help others on theirs too.
That's so exciting. And Dr. Z, you're here to help us make sense of it all. But tell me too, have you had your authenticity journey as well?
Yes, I have. I've always known that I wanted to help people. I'll say that. And it went from wanting to be a school teacher to actually, I think I wanted to be a gym teacher, to ending up in human services and mental health, and then ending up being a therapist, which now ended me up being a professor. So, being my authentic self has always been helping people, but what that looked like throughout the years has definitely changed.
Mm-hmm. All right. Awesome. Thank you all so much for being a part of this journey. I know I've shared a little bit of my journey. I feel like it's been since I've come into my 30s that I've really started to take that time and really examine lived life and look at, those little pockets in those places of like, am I really showing up as my most authentic self? As I've told some before, I was adopted as a baby. And so now that I'm into my 30s, I'm kind of looking at, okay, well, what feels like the real me or what doesn't feel like the real me, and trying to identify those places in life where maybe I have not really shown up as fully as possible. And so one of the things that's come out of that is a stronger understanding of who I kind of see myself to be. For a nice chunk of my career, I tried to find myself in television. I thought a newsroom was going to show me who I was. But it wasn't until I ended up in a newsroom previously in my career where all the things that I enjoyed about television were sort of zapped out of that job. I got into television because I liked creative writing. But then I was in a job where the creative components were melting away, and I'm just in the mundane run-of-the-mill job every day, and I didn't feel like the creative piece was there. And so what I learned at that time, I happened to grow my friend circle, and I learned for myself that my creativity went beyond the reason that I got into television news. Well, I may have gotten into television news for creative writing. I found that my creativity could go beyond the walls in which I'd tried to contain it. I like to make things. I like to craft. I like to create space for conversation like this. And once I stopped putting those walls up for who I thought I needed to be and the box I thought I needed to be in, it felt like the entire world opened up. I know you all may be able to say in your job, sometimes you go into work and they have, this is what you have to do. You may have this great idea in this meeting and nobody likes it today, so it's not going to happen. What I love about creativity is I can have a wonderful idea in the morning, go to the craft store, buy all the stuff to make it, and I can make it real by the end of the day, and no one else can tell me I can't do that. And there's a freedom in that doesn't exist in a newsroom, doesn't exist in any like corporate space. And so once I kind of discovered what that was, I said, well, I think the best gift I can give myself is to launch myself into more of the things that I'm passionate about. Because as Dr. Z has said, and she'll probably say again tonight, if you focus on the things that you're passionate about and the things you love, they grow. You show up most authentically when you're doing the things you love the most. And in so doing, you attract more people that respond to the truest version of who you are. And then the things that you're passionate about just organically grow. And so I'm discovering that in this process. I feel like my circle, we're in the middle of a pandemic when things are like shut down and connecting is very spotty. I feel very connected to my new home because so many people are willing to share a space like this one with me. So I'm very appreciative of all of you giving your time and an hour on your Friday to join us. So that's a little bit about me, but I want the rest of this conversation to be about all of you, because I know you all have some really dynamic stories and experiences to share. Carly, for you, when you decided that trades were the path that you wanted to pursue, what has the journey that you're on now taught you about yourself?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think one of the biggest things is we are so much stronger than we know. Like, wow. It's kind of emotional to talk about, actually. Just how you can dig really deep and do things that you never thought you could do. That's probably the biggest thing I've learned about myself throughout all this. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that's probably an ongoing journey too. I mean, it's yeah. And it really takes courage, would you say, Shelby, to kind of walk that space? Because it feels scary sometimes, I think, when you think you're supposed to be on one path, but the path that feels the most like you is a different one. And then you may have all this clutter and this noise from other people saying, I need to be in this box or be in this space. But it takes courage to be and live and do the things that you're really passionate about sometimes, right?
Absolutely. And I think that was the hardest challenge for me, is stepping out of the corporate world and being courageous and confident to challenge like the status quo of like what's acceptable and in coaching and personal development and professional development. And, really having to just lean into, who am I, and like, what's the cost if I don't continue to become more of myself? And it really is this like daily, I think, commitment to yourself to try to stretch outside the box, because there's so many dominant voices and so many dominant narratives in our culture that will try to keep you where you are because that feels safe and cozy and it's what everyone else is doing.
And Dr. Z, sometimes the people around you, they may be afraid to see you be the truest version of who you are, because maybe that person is one that maybe they're afraid they won't be able to connect to, or maybe they're afraid of what change means for them. And maybe it's not really about you, it's their own fears and insecurities too, would you say?
Yes. Sometimes the people around you are afraid for you to change, not necessarily because they don't feel it's going to change the dynamic of your relationship. Whether it's good or bad, it will change the dynamic of a relationship. The energy that you bring when you change what you're doing or how you're moving about, I don't say how you're moving about the cabin. When you move differently, things around you will change. Hopefully they will change for the better. And sometimes people do end up, not being by your side, as we have discovered in many of our discussions these past Fridays. So
Yeah, and that can feel scary when you're embarking on a journey that feels the most like you, and you have these friends and these folks that you have always leaned on to be your support, and then you feel like your relationship's changing, they're not going to be there in the same way, but then maybe you still have to find and have the courage to stay on that path that feels the most like you. What would you say, Megs, on that part of the conversation?
Absolutely terrifying. Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me in figuring out how to really get in touch with what authenticity looks like for me, and on that journey, particularly around my sexuality and my own queerness, was I used to really reject the idea of, I would avoid other queer folks at all costs because it was just so painful to get in touch with that part of myself that I hadn't resolved yet. And so that was how that kind of manifested for me. And then as I grew into it, it is challenging because you will lose people, and it does make folks nervous when you're growing more into yourselves because you're not the same person that they knew.
And sometimes that requires a different kind of strength, I would imagine, because at a time when you may feel the most vulnerable and want support, like to continue on the journey that feels the most like you, and you're shedding these people in your life that you had hoped would be a part of it, but then you still have to keep going. That feels like a very emotionally vulnerable place to navigate. Would you say that was the case?
Yeah, for sure. It's like freeing and that like edge of your comfort zone fear at the same time. So it's a really interesting thing to try to sort out, but that's why community and connections are so important, because when you can get into spaces where other folks are experiencing something along the same lines, it's a whole lot easier to process when you kind of have shared struggle and also shared triumph too, because there's a lot of joy in that process as well.
And sometimes you have to change your circle, would you say, Shelby?
Yeah, sometimes you have to change your circle. Sometimes I think you have to tap in for others to come and help you too, and invest, investing in people like coaches, or, finding new community for yourself. So being a part of different groups that maybe have, similar ideas and ways of being, for this new way of yourself. So I think it's finding these different partners in different ways to help you on those days where it's hard, what might feel hard to keep going and being yourself.
All right, absolutely. And Carly, tell me a little bit about before you were on your current journey of being a plumbing apprentice and a teacher. Tell me, like, what were you doing immediately before you said, I'm going to take this leap? And then did you have those support systems there to say, hey, we're going to take this leap with you? Or did you have to do any convincing of folks to say that this feels right for me? I'm going to do it. I just want you to be supportive.
On board. Yeah.
Yeah.
So before I was a plumbing apprentice, I was a teacher in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
And so March of 2020, the pandemic hits, as we all know. I was told, I knew I was going to move up to Minneapolis. My partner and I were going to move up. And we got, we heard everything shut down. You're not going to go back to school. And we were like, let's just move now, because why not? Let's move in a pandemic. We move up here, and I had already known I was going to shift careers. And after figuring out I wanted to go into the trades, I feel like a lot of people were like, really, that's super interesting. I'd love to know why and more about that and what. Granted, I had very little experience. I mean, I have built a shed or something, but people were rightfully so like, this is interesting. So I don't think convincing. I did have some scratching of heads. But I would say my family was really supportive. I think they were like, this is so weird, but kind of cool. Friends were supportive. And like you said, when you shift, you shift who you are, some people are weirded out by that, or you lose some people on the peripheral, but the people that are there no matter what, hopefully. And I have found that, and I feel very supported by my family and my new coworkers and my new boss. So I feel very lucky to have maintained a very, a very good core of people who I feel supported by.
And Dr. Z, I feel like we've talked about this before. Sometimes when you're, branching out to live the fullest version of who you are, other people are afraid or they don't want you to change because you changing maybe for them becomes something that they don't recognize, and it means that they have to grow too if they're going to be able to stay in your life as this new elevated self. And if they aren't looking to grow in their personal life, or they're not looking to evolve themselves, then the idea of you doing it, it's terrifying for them, and they don't know how to exist where you're going, and they don't know how to be supportive where you are.
Yeah, sometimes people put their limiting beliefs on you when you try to change, or you show up differently. I'll just say, when you show up differently, people say, well, you've changed. Hopefully people have enough confidence to say, well, I'm not working to stay the same. I'm hoping to do something different in my life. And the thing is, you can't worry about who's going to be there either. You just have to do it. You just have to start. You just have to do what you feel is best for you. And sometimes you might not even have those conversations with your friends. Those people that are meant to stay will stay. And sometimes you might even motivate and inspire those that are around you to change as well. So sometimes that can be scary. A person might not think they're ready to change, but you changing lets them see that they can do it, or it lets them see that they can't do it. And again, that's not your problem either. It's not your problem anyway.
Yeah, and you just have to continue to grow, and if it feels right for you, continue in that process. Shelby, what would you tell to someone that's listening if they're saying, I'm hearing everything that everyone here is saying, and this sounds great and sounds dandy, but how and where do I start for me? Like, what would be a logical place to just begin the process of, like, how do I live my most authentic life?
Yeah, I think some places you can start are always within. I think often we want to look outside ourselves and get answers from other people. And so I think it's sitting down and asking yourself, like, where are there gaps? When you think of like your dream life or your dream job and where you are today, like, what is the gap in between this present moment and where you want to be? And looking at, aspects of personality, aspects of your identity. Did you used to be a fun person and now you're not? Are you more creative than you're allowing yourself to be? So sometimes it's these smaller things that we're keeping back, we're holding back, and which then help prohibits us from like really doing fulfilling things in our work and our relationships. So I'd say start within and sit down, either with a coach or just with a journal. There are a lot of resources out there to get you thinking about what does a dream day look like for you, and map that out and ask yourself, like, how would I get there? What would it take? And who do I need to become to be that person? Like, what do I need to do? And really becoming, I think, has been a little bit of a controversial word, in that you're already this person. It's whether or not you're allowing yourself to be that person, right? So the becoming isn't necessarily like that you're someone new. It's just that you're letting some of the baggage and the armor fall away.
And the world that we live in now, it's one where we want immediate gratification. You hop on social media, you look at, people see the aftermath after someone's maybe done all the work, but they didn't see all the hard stuff before that picture went on Instagram, and all the not so pretty pieces of life that it maybe took to get to that photo. Megs, I'm curious, because I know you're a school psychologist and kids probably are navigating all kinds of challenges and pressures. What are some of the things that you offer to them when they're just, in that space of, you're dealing with the pressures of fitting in, trying to figure out like, well, who am I? And then you have the pressures of maybe other kids and what they're saying, this is popular, or this is what you need to be. And you're trying to, navigate all this clutter and just figure out, well, how can I exist in this world in a way that feels most comfortable to me?
Well, I think it's something that's really cool about education right now, is that kind of like Shelby was talking about, starting within and learning to tune into what is my body telling me? How does it feel? What is my energy like when I'm around certain groups, when I'm doing different activities or I'm in different subjects? What's coming up for me, and how does it all integrate with what I'm doing when I'm at school for 7 hours a day versus what I'm doing the other 16 hours of the day? And really teaching students, which is something that I really never learned. Probably not a lot of us learned that when we were going through school, but there's a much heavier focus on that social emotional learning and building those skills, because I think that's what happens for a lot of us. We get to adulthood and we've learned not to trust ourselves and live life from the inside out. It's always been external, like what are we supposed to do, and kind of, is this good or bad, right or wrong? Because we live in a world of binaries where it's really about tuning in and being open to evolution and the idea of growing and changing. And I think that's a really cool opportunity for students right now, and something that I definitely try to reinforce in my practice and when I'm working with them too, because there are a million things coming at them about what they should be doing, or what is best for them. So I think working from the inside out is probably the best advice out there for both students and adults alike.
That's so true. And even if that process may take you like months, years, however long, everybody's journey is different, and and people should remember to give themselves grace and appreciate where they are and the specific journey that they're on. And we really shouldn't compare our journey to that of others. Would you say, Shelby?
Yeah, so we definitely should not compare our journey. And like I think you were mentioning earlier, if you're going to attempt to compare, what you will be comparing against, right, is just someone else's shiny, beautiful finish. Likely, you won't be comparing it to the struggles and the hurdles along the way. And I just want to come back quickly to what Meg said, around trusting ourselves. And, it comes back to within. You have your own blueprint for success. And so to compare to someone else's won't do you any good, because you have a unique set of strengths, a unique personality, and a unique mission. And so how you're going to get there, what will success feel like, that will be so different for you than someone else. And so it's really, that first step is really about learning to trust yourself and learning to listen within, because your answers are gonna look different.
Such an important message. And Carly, for you, did you feel like when you made the decision to finally become a plumbing apprentice, is it an idea that you had for some time and you kind of sat on it until you made that move and you said, you know what, I'm doing this now? Did it take you like months or years to say, hey, I'm going to do this? Or did you feel, I want to do something different, I'm not sure exactly what, and you had to kind of stay in that thought process till it came to you?
Yeah, so I really had not thought about it much before I did it. I tried, I went for it, which is kind of like, looking back, I'm like, that was bold. But I knew I wanted to do something that aligned with my personal values. One of those is bravery, and I feel like this was a very brave thing. And I knew I wanted to do something that worked with my hands, that was problem solving. So being a plumbing apprentice, it's not like I had dreamt about it as a child. But I had dreamt about like components of it, like being able to provide for myself and be financially stable, like being problem solving, like serving people, coming to someone's house and solving a problem that they've had for weeks feels great for everybody. So it had elements of all these things I wanted, unbeknownst to me. I had never thought about it before, but I watched a lot of This Old House as a child, so I think the seed was planted early. And yeah, so after the pandemic and teaching remotely, and just 11 years was a long time to be a teacher for me. It was like a third of my life, so I needed to try something different. And so then I had not thought about it much at all, Shayla, which is, I can't believe I'm doing it, to be honest.
But I think that's so cool though, because the bravery component of that, like there are people that will live their entire lives doing a job that they have no passion for just because they know I can depend on this to pay my bills, and then they're old and they're talking about the life that they wish they had led. And so to your point, bravery is like so key in so many aspects of authenticity, whether you're changing jobs or trying to identify most authentically in the world as far as gender and that and it's different for everyone, but it takes courage to show up no matter where that journey centers for you, right, Dr. Z?
Yes, indeed. That was, I'm just like still over here chuckling. It's like, yeah, I don't know how I ended up in this, but I did it anyway.
I have no idea.
Hilarious.
No idea.
I love it. Yes.
It's just like, you were just like, you know what? I have this thought and I'm going to leap on it. And like Shayla was saying, sometimes people sit on their dreams, their desires, their goals for years. Sometimes they never chase their goals and their dreams out of fear of, maybe it's a lack of security or lack of just heck, anything. Like some people are just so scared to go for what they really want to do because they've been put in this box for so long. And it's like, kudos to you for like stepping out the box and just like, you know what, I think I'm going to do this. And you actually did it. And hopefully it ends up to be very fruitful for you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Would you like to add, what's the most, I guess, if there was anything that was most surprising about your career change, what surprised you the most?
Oh man, the inside of people's homes is a fascinating thing to just experience. I mean, wow. You see it all, guys. You see it all. So that, but on a serious note, how much goes in, like, I've turned on thousands of faucets. I've used hundreds of toilets, but I had no concept of like the system, the very elaborate, nuanced system that goes into place. I mean, like we are so lucky to have such an amazing system that we can get our water and our waste disappears. And it's really kind of cool, not to nerd out on plumbing, but it's very, very interesting. And there's a lot we can do. Like there's a lot that anyone that's watching this can do that you don't even know that you can figure out, that you can do. So follow me on Instagram and ask me if you have any questions. Seriously, we can do so much more than we think we can.
And that's how you know that you're doing something you're passionate about, because of the excitement in your voice when you tell us about it.
Sometimes I forget that I am passionate about plumbing. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's excited about toilets. Like, yes. But that's what it's supposed to be. Like that's whatever it is. Like somebody was saying, like, I don't care if my kid want to walk dogs for a living. As long as they love what they do, they can walk dogs for a living. The excitement that you are demonstrating is showing that you are doing the right thing. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, thank you. I sometimes forget. Sometimes I'm like, how am I here? This is so wacky. One plumber just said he's only ever seen 3 other female plumbers in his whole life. He was like 70. So sometimes I think this is just too wacky, but you're right. The passion for toilets, it's here, guys.
I love it. And if you need Carly's Instagram, Megs, Shelby, Dr. Z, they're all ticking below. So whatever you want to learn, please follow everyone, because we'll get you squared away. So Megs, do you feel like you're living your calling right now? Do you get just as excited as Carly about plumbing with your work, as a connector, community builder, podcaster, school psychologist? Do you feel like you are living your authenticity?
Yes.
Okay.
Mostly.
Okay.
So I really got into a lot of the community building and podcasting and all of that stuff because in my work as a school psychologist, it's very rigid and rule bound, and we have a lot of educators, former in the room right now. It's a very easy place to get burned out. And after 10 years of kind of being in that space, I've really found that when I get home, that's when I get lit up to get on a podcast interview, to facilitate someone sharing their coming out story, to connect people all over the world with each other who are going through a similar experience, and watching people evolve and grow in further into their authenticity. That's the stuff that really lights me up. So there are components of my training and all of the things I've done as a school psychologist that really serve me in facilitating a lot of the community building that I do, and facilitating storytelling and all of that, has really kind of created this whole picture with which, like you were saying, authenticity doesn't come in a day, a week, a month. It's over several years. And I'm really just starting now to see how all the pieces are kind of fitting together as I just kind of keep following what the innards tell me to do. And it's all starting to make more sense. And I can only imagine over the next decade or so, it's going to get even more clear. So it's pretty exciting.
That's so cool. And I think too, when I look back on lived life, sometimes when you're going through things, you don't always understand, well, why is this happening? Or why is that happening? And then you live a little bit longer, and then you kind of understand, like, oh, I needed to go through that. So maybe I would have this wrinkle in the fabric of who I am that I can share with someone else, or it informs, where you are now in your journey. And maybe if you hadn't gone through whatever that experience was, you wouldn't be the person that you are now to be able to share all the richness of the person that is with everyone else. Shelby, tell me about you. And you created Personal Development Catalyst, a podcast host as well for Catalyst for Conversation. How do you feel that work speaks to the authenticity conversation that you've had within yourself and your purpose to live authentically and encourage and help others do the same?
Yeah, I think for me, it's been a great outlet and a good source for my own journey. As I started it, I was really working with one-on-one individuals and bringing groups together. And where I'm at now is finally being on a place on my journey where I'm ready to step back into organizations. And what I didn't know when I first left my corporate job is that part of my journey was to unravel, reconnect with who I am, so I can come back into that space, bringing my empathy and bringing my, connection skills to the workplace. So my work, it has been my work for me, as well as the work that I put out in the world, which has been really fascinating to see. And I think, as you said, as you look back, a friend of mine told me once, as I was complaining, like, none of this makes sense. She said, think of it as different points of light making a constellation. Like, at some point, from some vantage point, these different things, they're connecting. And where I'm at right now, for sure, it's coming together. And I'm ready to be back in spaces where, organizations are talking about work, and I can bring a fresh perspective because I'm ready to be there as my authentic self, bringing my unique set of skills.
And I think what is so cool about all of you all, and what people should know, is you don't have to be one thing. Like, sometimes people think, oh, I have to be this one thing, or if I'm not this one thing, then everybody will feel this way or that way about me. And you can be many things, and that's okay if that feels the most real to you. I think the most important thing that I've learned in my personal journey to authenticity is, after no longer trying to just fit myself in the box, check news, I figured out, oh, I'm a creative, deep thinker who loves to laugh and help other people see the best of who they are. I just happen to work in a newsroom. And you're going to get the same hello at the grocery store that you get if you see me at work. But being able to connect with that and understand that's who I am, that's okay. Like, I don't have to fit here. I don't have to fit there. And I can be full and whole and who I am in all of those ways. Dr. Z, can you speak a little bit to that? Because some people do feel like, they have to just fit. And sometimes the box you're trying to stuff yourself in is not really who you are.
Yeah. Okay, so navigating a bunch of spaces. I can only give like my story as briefly as possible. Like growing up, I'm from North Philadelphia. The box that I was placed into was, you're only going to amount, like, as long as you get out of high school, that was the goal. And the goal for my mom was to get out of high school without having a baby. And here I am now, where I am. I can be, that little girl from North Philly that still, when she goes home, she still wants to belong in North Philly, but you can still belong to another, other different types of populations. I like to work out. I like to, have chats with friends. I like to have a little sippy sip. There's nothing in my cup right now, by the way. It's hot chocolate, but you are not, no one is just a one-dimensional thing. You know what I mean? Like, you have different facets of your life. You're supposed to have different facets of your life. You shouldn't have to be stuck in just one box. Well, I'm like, oh, you're supposed to be a doctor acts like this. And I'm like, here I am sitting here with tattoos on my arms, and and I want to crack a joke. I might even curse a lot. I curse a lot. That's not the typical box that you would place somebody in, but that's other people's problems. That's not your problem. If people want to put you in the box, let them put you in the box. We're octopus. we're multifaceted, and we can do as many things as we want to do. So that's my soapbox.
I love it. And I think that's so great, because it takes courage to be able to share that view, that perspective. And the more that you put that view, that perspective, your life out there, your tribe will find you. Like, they're like, that's my person. That's my person. I love that. One of the other pieces I was going to add is sometimes I think even I've discovered sometimes we want people to be in our lives in a certain way. And you find, as you learn more about your authentic self, and they can't be in your life in the way that they are. Sometimes you feel anger, you feel frustration, you feel like you don't understand, like, why don't they get it? But then sometimes there's a piece of it, it's like, oh wait, let me step back, and I can see where they are, and I can understand that this person isn't in a place where they can be supportive for me in the way that I need to be supported. And then maybe you have to step away from that relationship and, acknowledge it just can't exist in my life in the way that I need it to. They aren't growing in the way that I need it to. And you sort of have to put it aside. And, hopefully that they come around, but you can't carry that weight along with you. Megs, anything you can add on that?
Life story. Yeah. I've had some pretty intense conversations, particularly with my parents. And this is why I got a life coach, because I was having a really hard time. It's really hard when you're in it, and it's authenticity is the most personal thing ever, right? So it's when you're in it, it's hard to zoom out and see another person's perspective that you just feel so incredibly wrong, and you can't really relate to it. And what I've learned, or what has been really helpful for me, is communicating where I'm at and what I need in order to be shown support or loved. And I've really framed up conversations that are difficult, where we have varying perspectives with, this is how I think we can love each other better. And if we're going to maintain this relationship, then this is what I need. How can I love you better? How can we meet in the middle on that? And if we can't, then the relationship is pretty much just put on hold until we're in a space to do that. But it's kind of setting loving boundaries. I guess it has been the most helpful thing for me, whether it's friends or parents or colleagues or whatever, because there's a lot of opportunity to do that depending on what piece of authenticity you're looking at. For me, that's been a lot of my identity with my queerness and sexuality, but I know that comes up with a lot of other elements as well. But loving boundaries has been the key.
And Shelby, can you elaborate on the importance of boundaries as you work to live your most authentic life? Before I have you do that, I do want to share a quick comment here. Wendy said, I love this discussion. One of my closest friends started calling me Wendy 2.0 because she noticed that I was changing. I laughed at first when she said it, but then it really made me feel great that she noticed my growth. That's awesome, Wendy. Thank you so much for sharing that. And before you go ahead, Shelby, if anyone else has any questions or comments you'd like to share, definitely post those below and we'll be able to pop those up. We've got about 15 minutes left and share those with the participants today. Yes. So Shelby, if you could talk a little bit to the, Meg's point about boundaries and why it's important to set those. And if you feel apprehension about having to set them because of maybe the proximity of the people you need them with, it can feel kind of awkward, stressful, like you're wondering if I'm doing the right thing. How do you navigate that space?
Yeah, I think one of the best things is just to keep it clear and set on, like Meg said, about what you need to feel supported and loved. I think oftentimes we get kind of uncomfortable with setting boundaries because we're afraid we're going to hurt somebody else's feelings or we're going to come on too strong. And I think with any relationship, though, that's going to be, I don't know, respectful and growing and mature, you have to get to a place where you can at least express your needs and say, this is what I need to feel loved. This is what I need to feel supported. And I really like that language that Meg used because I think it feels approachable and neutral. Someone can certainly argue with you if whether you need it or not. It's really not up for debate, of course. But I think I like that kind of language where you're putting it very clear, plainly stating, like, this is what I need to feel supported, instead of, can you be a different person? Right. I think is where people get uncomfortable, is whether or not they're telling someone else how to behave and be. But I think when you can approach it from a place of those I statements and what you feel like you need, then I think it can go a little bit better.
Yeah, and Dr. Z as well, that as Shelby and Meg's highlighted, it can feel kind of scary because there are people in our lives, like, they don't understand where we're going. And so people have a tendency to want to box you into their realm of understanding, because in order to understand where you're going, they would have to grow, and they don't know what growth for them looks like. They may not be looking to grow. And so for them to be able to understand the person that you're becoming, instead of evolving with you, they're saying, let me figure out how to put you back into this space that I understand.
Yes. Sometimes people cannot support you. And, and as we stated before, sometimes supporting you will mean that they have to show up differently. And the thing is, if they're not ready to show up differently, that's okay. That shouldn't stop your progress and your goals and your, you setting your sights on where it is that you're trying to go. Like, it is a-okay. The saying, reason, season, lifetime, I guess it was created for a reason. Maybe that person is not meant to be there. You would hope that your friends and loved ones can love and grow with you, because if they are, like, loving you, that means they are growing with you, regardless of how it is you decide to show up, promoting that it's positive, not that you're out here harming people. But the goal is, like, when you want to hope to grow together, not grow apart. But if it's meant to happen, it's meant to happen. That's the thing. You still have to keep going regardless.
Yeah. And then find your people, find your crew, like the people that are growing the way that you're growing, and they may become your new and most important support to get you through that space where maybe you feel the most afraid. Would you say, Carly?
Absolutely. I mean, I went from having tons of coworkers around all the time, tons of students around people so much, and loving it. I'm an extrovert most of the time, and not knowing actually how much I needed it, and then going to a job where I work with one other person. He's lovely, but it was just a complete Yeah, John, if you're watching, you're probably not. Thank you for all your patience. But it was a huge change in just trying to figure out like who is my community and how do I build community in a all men, just totally different environment than I was used to, which was way more women. And I do miss that. I do miss the sisterhood that you feel with other women you work with. So that is something that has been definitely a struggle as I've transitioned to the trades, that camaraderie of other women. So that is probably one of the hardest things for me about my current job, about my new career.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that perspective. Tamika Jones, she'll actually be joining us next week with Lip Esteem. She shared, it's hard to put up boundaries with family. However, since I have put them up and separated myself, I've grown and I've flourished. Others don't understand, and I can't explain it for others to understand. And that's okay, right, Shelby?
Yes. That is definitely okay. I think because they're family, there's always this, like, we feel like there's this special rule, but there's still humans, right? And you still have something that you are on a path to accomplish. And so it's okay if maybe not forever, but like Dr. Z said, for a season, maybe those people have to sit it out, but it's definitely okay. And I think maybe be prepared for that not everyone's going to understand, but they don't need to, because it's not their journey.
That's so important. We've got about 9 minutes left, and I want to give each of you a chance to leave some closing thoughts for everyone. If people are on their journey to authenticity, what would you want them to know, whatever phase they're in? I would offer, if it feels the most like you, continue to pursue whatever that is and see where that journey leads, because it may lead you to surprising things that you never thought you would be doing, and connect you with people you never thought would be in your circle, and expose you to opportunities that you never dreamed you would have, if you just have the courage to do more of the things that feel the most like you. And so even if it feels scary, sometimes you have to feel the fear and do it anyway. I know we haven't talked about this perspective. If you could touch on this quickly, Dr. Z, before you leave closing thoughts. Be realistic. If what you want to do is something that you're going to have to make an investment financially into, don't just stop. I'm going to stop cold turkey and go do this new thing. You have to figure out how it fits financially into your budget. Maybe it's, starting with writing down ideas, or maybe you're having to save a little bit here and there to be able to make an initial investment in something. But yes, don't leave yourself, poor, just like jumping right out. Sometimes it makes more sense to go slow.
Right. Plan for whatever change. Maybe you have a partner that is financially able to take care of things, but you don't want to make it to where you actually have to rely on people because you did not financially prepare, you did not mentally prepare, or you don't have clear, actionable steps. Now, granted, you might not know how you're going to get from point A to point Z, but at least have a plan for, if I'm out of work or if I'm not bringing in any income, who else is this going to impact? Because you don't want to be irresponsible, but you also don't want to stop your goals either. But just set it up to where you have the most chance for success, knowing that barriers and hurdles will come your way, but you're being responsible with the way in which you're choosing to move.
Important perspective. And Sana Isaac says, I definitely agree. Some people are only meant to be around for a season. And sometimes it's, as tough as it may feel, we have to be okay with that. Even if we want them or feel like we want them to be around longer, sometimes we just have to accept where they are, and know that where they are is not where we are or where we're going. And even though it's painful, it doesn't mean we stop the journey that we're on because they're not with us. It's just learning to accept the fact that, hey, they can't be in my life in the way that they were before, but I have to keep going. Madison shares, I'm so inspired by all of you. Thanks for sharing your stories. And thank you so much for sharing that comment. We really appreciate you taking the time to weigh in, Madison. Before I go on to Carly to leave her thoughts, we've got Eileen here. This is wonderful. Love you, Carly. Carly's fan club. If more of you are looking to join Carly's fan club, Megs, Shelby, Dr. Z, I'm plugging you all. Their Instagrams are ticking along below, so be sure to follow them. I'm sure they would appreciate, your support as they grow their platforms on social media and beyond. So, Carly, what final thoughts would you leave someone else with when it comes to that journey of authenticity and learning to live an authentic life?
Yeah, I would say this is something I've worked on a lot with my lovely therapist, is figure out what your core values are. Pay attention to what makes you feel things, and really like dig into that. Living from the inside out was something that really resonated. I think who said that today?
Megs.
Yes, Megs. Yes, that really resonated with me. And I did that by figuring out what my my values are, which I'll share with you if you guys would like.
Yes.
Dignity, service, and bravery. And if I can live within those, and if my actions can align with those, I think I'm living a pretty authentic life. And it took me to about my 30s to kind of like think about like, who am I? So there was sort of a shift when I hit my 30s. And so, I would say dig in a little bit and figure out what makes you feel things, and then pay attention to those things.
That's awesome. And before we move on, Amanda, proud of you, Carly. Thank you all for sharing your stories and perspectives. And thank you, Amanda, for taking the time to comment and watch. I appreciate you. Megs, what would you like to leave everyone with?
I think it's so important to lead with, I'm going to call it brave curiosity, and to kind of follow the nudge. You're going to get a bunch of different nudges as you go through life, but to use every outcome and experience, no matter what the outcome is, if it's good, bad, optimal, absolutely terrible, whatever happens, to use that as an opportunity to learn something new about yourself, whether it's career or relationships or whatever you're doing, to use it all as information to learn more about yourself as you're growing and evolving.
I love that. Thank you so much, Megs. Shelby, what would you like to add?
Oh, so many good things have already been said. I think, I'd say be patient. I have been surprised how long my journey has taken, even as a professional in personal development. I think be patient with yourself and do everything you can to really learn how to listen to what your inner voice is saying to you, whether that's therapy, whether that's coaching, whether that's a daily walk in nature. Nature is so grounding and healing. There are so many answers waiting to be heard, waiting to be untapped. And I think one of the most powerful things people can do is find these voices that are inside them, sharing answers that want to be heard.
I love that. And last but not least, Dr. Z, for folks that are on their journey to embracing authenticity, what would you like to leave them with?
Yeah, I mean, everybody did give great answers, so I would just sum it up with just like 3 little statements. Do what makes you feel good. Do what makes you feel whole. And do what makes you feel happy. That's how you know you are living your authentic life.
I love that. That's like the perfect, that's the little bow for the day. I love that. Before we wrap up, I'm gonna let everyone know. So let's chat. We'll be on hiatus just next week, but we'll be back the week after. I'll be emceeing a couple of virtual galas. The Domestic Abuse Project will be having their United and Healing Gala on Thursday of next week. So I'll be participating in that. And then I will be participating in the Alpha Kappa Alpha. They're doing their debutante cotillion for the first year. It's virtual. So I'll be participating in that on Saturday. So I'll be a little bit busy in other ways next week. So we'll be off next week, but I'm so excited to continue the conversation. And I feel like, Carly, I'm so glad you joined us today, because the next time I do the next round of the next conversation, I'm going to have to bring you back for it. We're going to be talking about changing careers, feeling the fear, and doing it anyway. We've got some awesome participants in this conversation. Tamika, who chimed in a little bit earlier, the founder of Lip Esteem. We have Hillary Klein, a senior PR specialist, beauty and lifestyle TV expert. Fabiana Peterson, entrepreneur, brain health coach, and Don Johnson, Coach Don, life and mindset coach, will be joining us. So I'm so excited about that conversation as well, because, you know, life has looked a lot different for a lot of people over the course of the last year. And some folks are diving into new careers. Others are contemplating, should I take on something new? And maybe they made those changes even before the pandemic. But I just think it's really cool to hear those kinds of stories and hopefully encourage other people that are maybe sitting on that idea or wondering, hey, should I try this new thing, or should I embrace this other journey? Just to hear, you know, how other people did that and found success in those spaces. We have a couple more comments too before we go. Brooke says, I want to be you all when I grow up. Love you, Carly. Oh, I love that.
Clearly, my family has nothing else to do tonight. So, family and friends, thank you for your support. We go wild on Fridays. Clearly.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you all.
I'm
for
loving
watching.
it. It's amazing.
And then Brandy Shea said, thank you all for the conversation. Yes. And I appreciate you all as well, giving an hour out of your Friday night to join me and all of the awesome people that watched tonight. Of course, if you missed any part, or you want to know, hey, what did we talk about early on, or you just want to share the link will be available right as we wrap up the broadcast. So you can share that for anyone who didn't have a chance to see it. And if you all can hang on for just 1 second, I'm going to end the broadcast and I'll talk to you in the backstage area. Have a great evening, everyone. Take care.